Ani Bojo, Shikenido Makushkish Gokwe, Nigo Makwando dem. Gloria Oshkawbewisens McGregor, Dijnikos. Ngake the Bajam, Nana good known gonna cousin Manda Jagana Shiwit. We the Bajama. I'll tell a story of growing up as a child. In my memory of where it clicked in. I grew up in Wiidaadookaanuk, and I was raised, I guess you would say, in the bush back then. It's not so much bush now, but back then our neighbors was quite a ways from each other. But I grew up on the land, and it's hard to believe sometimes when I share that story that we grew up around wild horses. We grew up around a lot of nature. And my playground was the bush. And at times I would go in the bush all by myself, and my parents never worried about me, that I would never get lost. And I felt right at home in there. And part of the relationship to the land is knowing that there's other things out there. And what, for me growing up as a child, I used to see things that the unseen eye couldn't see. Clear as day, I would see them. But I never shared that with anybody. And to this day, I still wonder why. I shared it when I was in my 30s with my mother. But when I was a child, the land was my consoler. The land was able to nurture me, I found, and I used to find peace. I used to go sleep in the deep, tall grass and just feel so safe there. There was a time where I used to see images, and these images were tall, very like giant size. They used to come and see me. Sometimes they would come and see me at night, and they would play jokes on me. But I was afraid of them because I didn't understand them. What they used to do is they used to laugh. Their laughter used to hurt my ears. I used to grab my ears like that and just hold them because their laugh was so huge. At times when they would come, and I knew they would come when I would go to bed, and we all just had one big room where all of us slept in, where it was always 3 to the bed. And so when they would come, I would know, I would sense that they were coming, and they would stand beside my bed. And they used to look at me, look down at me, and they used to laugh. And I'd get afraid of them. But they used to play tricks on me. They'd make everything in the house grow big. I used to see the furniture grow really big, and I grew really small. Then there are times they used to come, and they would make me grow really big, and everything grow really small. And they would laugh. I can't remember how many of them, but sometimes 3 of them would come at a time, and sometimes more. And when at times I would be outside playing with all my cousins, because we shared property with my grandfather, my old Michael. And we'd play hide and seek. We'd play different games. I remember one time we were playing hide and seek, and I would run and I'd try and pick the best place to hide. Then I heard, and I knew right away that they were coming to find me. I'd feel the ground like this, and I knew they were coming, and I wish you could disappear. And then, but I knew they were coming, but I didn't want to get out of my spot. And I remember one time, and I opened my eyes and I looked up and I could see them, and they were all looking down on me, and then they were just laughing. And I held my ears because their laughter hurt my ears. And they're laughing so hard. I got up and I ran away there really fast, and next thing you know, I was caught. I was it. And they would show up like that. And at times they would show up when we would be playing soccer or kick the can or whatever. All my siblings were around. Then I'd see them come out of the bush, just like that tree there, out of the almost like coming out of those trees, the woods there. And I would see them, they're coming and they're kind of like running, they're happy. But I'm scared, and I'm looking at my siblings and my cousins, and I'm wondering, why don't they see them? But they didn't see them. And they're wondering what's wrong with me because I froze, and I'm looking at them, they're huge. And then they would come running and they would be laughing. After a while, I would be able to take myself out of it, and I would run in the house. And I think that's why I always hung onto my mom's skirt. Because I hear stories of how I never let my mom's skirt go. It was always worn out on the sides. So I kind of remember that. That's why. I never understood that. And I shared that with my mother in my 30s. And then she says, how come you didn't tell me? Did they just come to you and scare you? Or did they touch you? No, they just came to me, but they laughed, but they scared me. Oh, okay. That's all she said. No other further explanation. And later on in my work, when I met children of that same fear, I understood, and I met one significant little boy that was seeing the same thing. And when I acknowledged some of what he was seeing, he was so relieved that somebody knew and somebody believed, and that he wasn't going crazy. So for me, that's how I see nature, how big part of nature and those realms that we're connected with. That is, and here on I go to find out in the ceremonies. And part of those ceremonies was the Wiidaadookaanuk, the clown society. Then I went to educate myself a little bit more on that, and how they were the opposite of things. Then I understood the difficulty I had in school, because I was diagnosed as dyslexic. I understood that after a while. But today, I know those are gifts. Yeah, that is one story I'd like to share.